You never know what you're going to find when you walk into the woods of central New Jersey. I actually did this a lot growing up. I grew up in central New Jersey, and for me, the woods was the old pine forest that surrounded my apartment complex. So picture sort of this square apartment complex, and we've got woods on three sides. The other side was Route 18, which, for those of you not from central New Jersey, it's basically the Autobahn of suburbia. To put it in perspective, in sort of the 2-mile stretch in which my apartment complex was right in the middle, the speed limit goes from 35 to 65, and the last traffic light is basically right outside of our complex. So people really like to speed up at that spot. So the thing about having Route 18 as sort of the one non-wooded sort of side of our apartment complex is that the woods become a whole lot more appealing as sort of a way to get out when you're a kid because, you know, highways, bad stuff. Woods, kind of intriguing. When we were 6, we first moved into this apartment that backed up onto the woods, and there would be these spiders who would come in through the sort of back door, and I remember being a little kid and thinking, oh, here's this sort of foreign place, these woods out there. And these spiders were these sort of creatures who were coming in and showing me that there was interesting stuff out in those woods. The interesting thing about pine forests, too, is that they actually are self-burning. So there would be these random smells of campfires, but there was nobody back there. It was just the woods taking care of itself and basically preserving to make sure that it didn't grow too much. The way that I actually knew that these were pine forests at first, because, you know, little kid, not going to know that kind of thing, is that the apartment complex was called Pine Gate. I lived on Pine Tree Boulevard. Didn't exactly take John Arbor to figure that one out. But the thing that really sold me on the pine forest was the pine cones. There is a distinct joy of stepping on pine cones when you're a little bit of a kid. I hope the environmentalists in the room will forgive me for that. But when you step on a pine cone, there's this crunch. Actually, that's not quite right. It's actually about 1,000 crunches in one when you step on a pine cone. So I got really intrigued by the forest as I was growing up, and, you know, but still, little kid, nervous to venture into the woods. But growing up, got a bike, learned to ride on 2 wheels, got mountain bikes, all the rage, and started to get a little bit more adventurous, a little bit more bold. And we learned that there was this trail that went through the pine forest to Country Living, which is another suburban apartment complex on the other side of the woods, probably about a mile away. So my friends and I, we would get on our Huffies and we would speed through that forest, and we were really curious what we were going to find. First time we went out for a ride, red fox starts right in front of my bike. It was amazing to my 12-year-old self. Stopped, sort of stunned, but kept going, pressed on, and that's when things started to get a little bit weird. Riding through the trail, all of a sudden we come across 2 parked 40-year-old cars in the middle of the woods. This trail is about this wide, so clearly not room for cars to drive there. I may have been 12, but I knew that much. These cars have clearly been there a while, parked middle of the woods, covered in sand and dirt. Who knows what's going on? So we raced home, really excited about our discovery, really perplexed though too, and the problem was we weren't really supposed to be riding our bikes through the woods. So we couldn't just go ask our parents, Mom, Dad, why are there parked cars in the middle of the woods? So naturally, being kids, we asked our friends, and our friends were like, oh yeah, we know about those. No worries about that. They had no explanation, but they had actually already moved on because there were weirder things in the woods around my house. They said, have you seen the hearse? And apparently, we did later on eventually venture through the woods and find the hearse, abandoned and parked in the middle of the forest. Have you seen the barn? And sure enough, sometime later followed another trail, and there was an abandoned barn. What about the house foundation? No? And then found that eventually. House in the middle of the woods, in the middle of this old pine forest, no possible road that could lead to it, and there it was sitting there. And we got bolder and bolder as we sort of, you know, went on these different excursions. We eventually found what's known as the Leather Trail, which was another random trail through these woods where there was a pile of about this high of scraps of discarded leather pieces. No idea. Another time we went and followed a creek, and there was a wooden boat with a shark bite in it. I swear to God, there was a wooden boat in the middle of the woods with a shark bite in it. I actually read today that there was a shark carcass found in the woods in Australia, so I'm a little weirded out by the coincidence there. But anyway, we got bolder and bolder, and it actually became really empowering to sort of venture through the woods. And my parents moved out of that house last year, and I moved to Philly, and I'm very happy for them where they live now. I'm very happy for me, but I do miss those woods sometimes, and every time I drive back past the old neighborhood, I like to think that there's some new kid living in an apartment there making his first weird trips into adulthood.